all over the news in the last couple of days. It's been about Tricare was getting ready to do a rate change for autism treatment, and now it's been postponed.
Right.
And yet, every article that I read, there were people who were saying this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, this is somewhere in between. Help us to understand what's actually happening and what's of use to us to know from this.
So the thing I would like to start off focusing on is that Tricare lifted its $36,000 annual cap on services, which is huge for families, because now families who maybe were only able to get 10 hours of autism services per week to sort of make that $36,000 cap work can get as many hours as are medically necessary.
Okay, and when we talk about Tricare, we're talking about military families.
We're talking about military families and retired military families.
Okay, so important. These people have put their life on the line in so many different ways, and now they have kids that are on the spectrum. We want to make sure that they get the right amount of care. So this is good news that they've lifted that cap.
Absolutely.
Great.
So that part is great news. Gives families access to the services they need, and now what we have to do is trying to eliminate any barriers to that access.
Okay.
So some of those barriers are that they have proposed for the BCBAs, which are the supervisor master's level people, and the BCABAs, who have also been acting as therapists. When those people act as therapists, the BCBAs are going to experience a cut in April in their pay for their therapy rate. But as frustrating as that is, and I don't want to minimize the impact of that for the families who have BCBAs as their therapists, most of the time BCBAs are not acting as therapists.
Yeah. Usually they're the people who are designing the program.
Exactly.
They meet with the child periodically, but they're not usually the people in there doing the actual therapy.
The reason that there are families, military families in particular, who have BCBAs acting as therapists is that there was a plan and that is now going to be substituted. You know, this plan will take the place of that plan, but that plan only allowed BCBAs to provide the direct service.
Okay.
So that's why that's something that's affecting some military families, why there might be more BCBAs there than, say, in the civilian population doing direct services.
Okay, and it's important to note that you know, it's really critical to have a BCBA on your team to be overseeing things.
Right.
But it isn't critical for them to be the person giving therapy. There are great qualified people who aren't BCBAs who can be doing the therapy, and now there's a newer way to certify that they are effective, those people who don't have a BCBA to be doing the therapy, which is the RBT designation.
Well, along with the lifting of the cap, Tricare has also adopted new training requirements for that therapy. The person providing therapy, they're calling that person a behavior technician. In the past, they called them tutors. So it depends on what lingo people are familiar with.
Okay.
But that's the paraprofessional level, that frontline therapist who's working with your child every day.
Yeah.
And now those requirements have changed, and they're adopting the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, RBT, Registered Behavior Technician training. So the concern there is that until they adopted that, the requirements they had were very autism specific. And RBT training isn't actually autism specific. It can be autism specific, but it won't naturally be autism specific.
Yeah.
So we really encourage everybody to, make sure that the RBTs who work with their children are people who have received autism specific training. And I know that you have sort of knowledge of a course that's going to work for that.
We've talked about this before on the show, that I think that the RBT designation is awesome. I love that we're setting a standard that people have to be trained, but it's super duper important that they're trained in the right things.
Right.
So there are many trainings that are out there that are RBT, but they aren't all autism specific. In fact, the only one that I know of that is autism specific is the one that we talk about on the show all the time, that I'm trying to do in my spare time, because I think it's great as a parent to do it. That's at the Institute for Behavioral Training.
Yes.
You can go to IBT training, ibehavioraltraining.com. That's where I want to tell you to go to. And anybody can register for that. So I think as a parent, it's important that you know that information and that you be talking to your providers about which training are you going to get, because I would like to see that all of your RBTs get their training from IBT so that they get that autism-specific training. I think that's going to make a difference for families.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and they need to be watching this a little bit, because right now, if the person already has the job, they're covered for the next year. But if they're hiring somebody new, they've got to have it as of day one.
As of January 1st, Tricare will require anybody who wants to be credentialed through them for that behavior technician position to have the RBT training. So anyone who's working right now has an additional year until January 1st of next year to get that training done. So that won't create a big backlog on that end. But starting in January, we're a little concerned that there's going to be some delays for people who are seeking their RBT.
So if I were a military parent right now, I would be calling my provider saying, do you have a plan for the RBT? I want you to use an autism-specific one. Do you have a plan for that? And if they don't, tell them about IBT. Be that proactive parent who's letting them know.